Hi guys, Eevee Guy here. Welcome to my 4th playthrough with my Eevee squad. Today I will take them into the Sinnoh region. I will be playing Pokemon Diamond, and in this new generation we got new evolutions, Leafeon and Glaceon. The methods to evolve them involves raising a level next to a Moss Rock or an Ice Rock respectively. The most difficult task is evolving Eevee into a Glaceon. Not like the method is difficult, it's the location of the ice rock that makes this evolution a little annoying. But still, I want to use a Glaceon in this playthrough, although we will see him only in the finale, obviously. So now that we have 2 new Eeveelutions, we have 8 members in the Eevee squad, and we can only carry 6 Pokemon. So for this playthrough I will choose to leave Eevee and Jolteon out of the squad. So we will be living with Vaporeon, Flareon, Espeon, Umbreon, Leafeon and Glaceon. So I will have to tell you, in this playthrough I will use cheat codes. Yes, I will have to get Eevee illegally, because you can't get Eevee so early in the game, as far as I know. And I can get it through another way. So don't forget to put a like on that video and subscribe to my channel, Eevee will appreciate. And let's go! So we will start on Twin Leaf Town, and we leave from the house to get Barry out from his house. I mean, how lazy this guy can be. Anyway, we found him right away, in the middle of the way of course, for the lake. And so we get there and we found the professor from this region with Dawn. Barry thought he'd noticed they leave a briefcase in the grass, and he thought it was a good idea to go there and check it out. And because of that we got attacked by Starly. That made us choose one of the Pokeballs that was inside the briefcase. I choose Tortwig because Barry will choose Chimchar and have a team that it's going to be easy to deal. Either way, we just finish off those Starlies. Dawn came back and took the briefcase, but while we were going back home we found the professor with Dawn. Well, at least he didn't give us a lecture, right? Well, we get to Sunshine Town to meet the professor. Barry goes out from there in a flash. We get in and we meet the professor. He gives me the Tortwig I took from the briefcase. I try to tell him that I didn't need it, but he insists, so I hold on to him then. On Route 202, I decide to get my Eevee squad illegally. The first one I named Bubbles, of course, the second Fireball, the third ESP, the fourth Dark One, and the last 2 I named them Mawar. Mawar is the Indonesian word for rose. I got this name from my fiance, so thanks babe. The last Eevee I named Frosty. On Route 203 I found Barry. He wants a battle with me, and it's my first battle with him using my Eevee squad. So let's do this. He starts with Starly and I go with Fireball. Starly starts to lower our attack and I go with Tackle all the way. Then Starly goes with Quick Attack. Starly is on level 7, so after a few hits I decide to change for ESP. With another 2 tackles from ESP, Starly goes down. Next is Chimchar. I start to lower his defense a little bit, and then I change for Bubbles. I continue to lower Chimchar's defense. Chimchar does it too, but then I start to attack Chimchar with Tackle, but Bubbles falls to some scratches from Chimchar, so I bring ESP, which finishes Chimchar with a single tackle. Here is my full Eevee squad. Now I need to train them and get some levels for the first gym. After that we got to Oreburgh City. In the entrance of the gym I found Barry again. He tells me that the gym leader is not there, so we go off to the mines to find him. After we found him, he goes back to his gym, so it's time to face him. And Rock, just like Brock in Gen 1, he is a rock type gym leader. So yeah, we are going to have some difficulties in this one too, thanks to my Eevee squad still being normal type. Let's do this! Roark starts with Geodude and I go with Fireball. I decide to go with a different strategy that I did with Brock. Well, because I didn't have any other choice back then, so... Geodude goes with Stealth Rock. I decide to lower his accuracy first with 4 sand attacks, so he can miss his attack, while I lower his defense 4 times with Tail Whip. Then after that, I will attack with everything I can with Tackle. Although he still hit us with some rock throws sometimes, most of his attacks are missing thanks to the 4 sand attacks I sent to him. After a few hits with tackles, Rourke heals Geodude with a potion, but that doesn't matter. Geodude falls with the next tackles. Next is Onix, and I decide to change for Bubbles, and use the same strategy that I use with Geodude. 4 sand attacks, so he can miss his attacks. While he is missing his attacks, I can use 4 tail whips to lower his defense, and then attack with everything I can with tackle. Although my Bubbles still gets hit with some rock throws, the tackle starts to make some damage. I decide to go with another tail whip. After a few hits, Rourke heals Onix with another potion. But that doesn't matter, Onix goes down as well. Next is Cranidos. I send Mawar and use the same strategy again, since it's paying off, but Cranidos is more tricky. He uses Pursuit, which is hitting Mawar all the time. I continue with a sand attack, but eventually Mawar falls. So I go with Fireball, and I continue my strategy, and I attack with Tackle, lower his defense, but Cranidos puts Fireball down as well. So now I change for Bubbles, which is with lower HP. With a few more tackles, Cranidos falls, and we win the first badge on our first try. Whew! But I'm not going to lie, this battle took like 15 minutes, so damn. In my way out of Jubilife City, I found the professor and Dawn being bothered with some suspicious people. Dawn joins me to beat the crap out of them. After that, I caught a Geodude for the use of the HM Rock Smash. We get to Fluoroma Town, and in the way a little girl asks for my help to free her dad. So I go to the Windworks, fight with this guy, then he locks himself in, so I go get the key from the other grunts. I fight them, I take the key, go again to the Windworks, and I have to fight Mars. She sends Zubat, I send Fireball. With a few tackles, Zubat goes down, then she sends the most scary Pokemon for my Eevee squad, her Perugly. I change for ESP. I start to lower her accuracy with Sand Attack. I want to lower her defense safely, but her Feint Attack makes my ESP go down, so I change for Mawar. And I continued to lower her defense, but her Feint Attack was getting on my nerves, and Mawar goes down. So I send Frosty. I continue with the Tail Whip until I thought it was safe to start to tackle her. She heals with an Oran Berry, but after some few tackles, Perugly goes down, finally. Dad saved, girl happy, now it's time to continue our journey. In Eternal Forest, I found the most annoying character in the game, Cheryl. Fighting next to her, it's a pain, because you have to make all of the work. But the good news is, I'm in Eternal Forest, which means the Moss Rock is around here somewhere. And as soon as Mawar grows to level 15, it evolves into Leafeon. Oh, Razor Leaf, of course, why not? I arrive in Eternal City and I decide to get the Explorer Kit, so I can get the evolutionary stones that I need to evolve Fireball and Bubbles. But for some reason, when I try to use it, my screen stays black, like this. Oh, right, it doesn't work on emulator. Sorry guys, my Nintendo DS is broken, so... But hey, I managed to find a Water Stone and a Fire Stone on my bag! What a coincidence! I evolve Bubbles and Fireball respectively. After that I go challenge Gardenia, the Grass-type gym leader. She goes with Cherubi and I of course go with Fireball. I go with Ember while Cherubi goes for Safeguard. Gardenia uses Super Potion, but that is not enough, so Fireball makes a crit with Ember and Cherubi goes down. Next is Tortwig. I use Ember and Tortwig goes for Grass Knot. Another Ember finishes Tortwig. Next is Roserade. Roserade uses Grass Knot and I continue with Ember. Then Roserade uses Stun Spore, but fortunately Fireball can attack with Ember. Roserade cures herself with Citrus Berry and then uses Magical Leaf, which crits. But then Fireball finishes off Roserade, winning me the second badge. After I run like a maniac through the city, I raise the happiness of ESP and Dark One. Of course I only let ESP evolve into Espeon, Dark One has to be for later. In the fight with Jupiter, I use ESP to finish her Zubat, and then Bubbles I use to finish her Skuntank. The fight with Barry was easy actually, so we get to Veilstone and it's time to face Maylin, the fighting type gym leader. She starts with Meditite first and I go with ESP. It took a little time. I first put 4 sand attacks, then when Meditite manages to hit a Drain Punch, I decide to put 2 more sand attacks. Of course this fight took a little while, with Meditite using the Tact and Maylin using an Hyper Potion, but eventually Meditite goes down, so next is Machoke, which goes down with a single confusion. Last is Lucario, so I change for Fireball, which I take out with 3 Embers, winning as the 3rd batch. I go then help Dawn battle these 2 Team Galactic grunts. Of course I had to do most of the work, but we defeat them easily. Then, since it's night already, I let Dark One evolve into Umbreon. And then I arrive in Pastoria City, where I go face Wake, the water type gym leader. It starts with Gyarados and I go with ESP, I go with Confusion and Gyarados goes for Bite. I go for another Confusion and Gyarados gets a critical bite which takes ESP down. I send Bubbles next and Wake heals Gyarados with a Super Potion. And I go for Bite, which doesn't do that much. Then Gyarados goes for Bite, which Bubbles flinch. Then he goes for another Bite, which also flinch. Then Gyarados goes for Swagger, and Bubbles hits itself in Confuse. Then Gyarados goes for Dragon Rage, and Bubbles gets through Confuse and hits Gyarados with a +2 Bite, making a good damage. But still not enough to take it down, so Gyarados takes Bubbles down. Next I send Dark One, I start to go for 2 sand attacks. Then Gyarados, in the middle of Brine and Bite, it manages to hit a Swagger, and Dark One, being on low health, goes down by hitting itself in Confuse. So next I send Mawar, then a Razor Leaf takes Gyarados down. Next is Floatzel, it goes for Brine, and I go for Razor Leaf, which leaves it on the red. Its Citrus Berry heals a little bit from his health, but that is not enough because then Wake heals Floatzel with a Super Potion. But now a Razor Leaf should KO it, right? Wrong. Floatzel survives again on the red. Fortunately Floatzel only goes for Brine again, so another Razor Leaf takes Floatzel down. So last is Quagsire, and it goes down with a single Razor Leaf, winning us the 4th badge. So next we get the HM Defog, then we have to face our rival Barry. He goes with Starly and I go with Dark One, which takes down Starly with 2 pursuits. Next he sends Monferno, so I change for Bubbles, which leaves Monferno on the red with Water Gun. Then he changes for Roselia for a quick attack from Bubbles. Then I change for Dark One again. Why? Because I'm leveling up Dark One for the next gym. So 2 pursuits takes Roselia down. Then he brings back Monferno, which goes down with a single quick attack. Then last he sends Buizel, which goes down with a quick attack and 2 pursuits, winning the fight. Then we chase after this Galactic Grunt until he finally decides to battle, and we win very easily. Then we receive a secret potion from Cynthia to heal the Psyducks from Route 210. Then she shows up again to deliver an old charm for her grandma. Really? Come on, Cynthia, I have other things to do. Then I get there, I deliver the old charm to her grandma, and then I receive the HM for Surf. Well, at least this wasn't a completely waste of time. Then we finally get to Earthbound City, and we can finally face Fantina, the Ghost-type gym leader. She starts with Drifloon, and I go with Dark One. I first go with Confuse Ray, which Drifloon hits itself in Confuse. Then I go for 2 pursuits to take Drifloon down. Next is Gengar, so I change for ESP. Gengar starts with Confuse Ray, which puts ESP Confuse and hits itself in Confuse, all the time. And then after that, it goes for Poison Jab, which makes a lot of damage. Fortunately, ESP snaps out of Confuse and hits a Confusion, which puts down Gengar. Next is Miss Magios, so I change back to Dark One. Miss Magios goes for Magical Leaf, and I use Confuse Ray to put Miss Magios, well, confused. Then on the next turn, Miss Magius hits itself in Confuse, while our Pursuit makes a lot of damage, enabling Miss Magius' Citrus Berry to heal a little bit. Then on the next turn, Miss Magius hits itself in Confuse again, and then goes down with another Pursuit. And Dark One goes for level 36 and learns Feint Attack. Well, that would be great on this fight, but I will take it. So we win the 5th badge. So we go straight to Canadal City and we face Barry here. He starts with Staravia and I go with Bubbles. A single Surf takes Staravia down, so next is Roselia, so I change for Fireball. Roselia goes for Leech Seed and I go for Ember, making a little damage. Then I go for Ember again, but Barry changes Roselia for Buzzle, so I change for Mawar, which takes a Swift, then a Pursuit. Then I use a Razor Leaf to take Buzzle down. Next is Heracross, so I change for Fireball again. Heracross makes a lot of damage with Night Slash, while our Ember doesn't do even half. So on the next turn, Fireball goes down with another Night Slash. So I send ESP to take down Heracross with Confusion. By leveling up, ESP finally learns Psybeam. So next is Monferno. We take a priority Mach Punch first, then a single Psybeam takes Monferno down. So last is Roselia, which goes down with a single Psybeam, winning the fight. So now it's time to face Bryan, the Steel-type gym leader. He starts with Bronzor and I go with Fireballs. I go with Ember, which almost gets to half, and Bronzor goes for extra sensory. Then another Ember leaves Bronzor on the red and gets burned, so Bronzor uses another extra sensory before going down with the bird. Next is Steelix, so I change for Bubbles, and a single Surf takes Steelix down. Last is Bastiodon, so I go for Surf, which takes more than half, then Bastiodon goes for Flash Cannon, which only makes some tickles to Bubbles, so a last Surf takes Bastiodon down and we win the 6th badge. So now it's time to get to the most important place of the game. Well, for me anyway. I finally get to Route 216, where the Icy Rock is. So if I level up Frosty here, that means that Frosty will evolve into Glaceon. Finally, our last member of our Eevee squad can evolve. And now we arrive at Snowpoint City, so it's time to face Candice, the Ice-type gym leader. She starts with Snover and I go with Fireball, and a single Ember is enough to put Snover down. Next is Abomasnow, I go for Ember and almost finish it, but it doesn't go down. And then its Citrus Berry heals it a little bit, but we got the burn. Then Abomasnow goes for Avalanche, then for Wood Hammer, but then another Ember puts Abomasnow down. Next is Sneasel, so I go for Ember, which makes a lot of damage, but still not enough to take it out. Then Sneasel goes for Avalanche, which leaves Fireball on 1 HP, but of course Fireball goes down because of the hail. So I send Dark One next, and a return puts Sneasel down. Last is Medicham, which goes for Ice Punch, and I go for Confuse Ray, to see if I could have some luck. Unfortunately we don't have that luck, so Medicham goes for Force Palm, which paralyzes Dark One, and because of Dark One's ability Synchronize, Medicham gets paralyzed as well. Fortunately we get through paralysis and hit a Feint Attack, which doesn't do that much of course, and then once again Medicham gets through Confuse and hits Dark One with an Ice Punch, leaving Dark One on just 6 HP. We still manage to hit a Feint Attack, but then Dark One goes down by the hail, so I sent Frosty to give it a chance to finish this. So I go for Icy Wind and Medicham goes down, winning us the 7th badge. Now it's time to go for the most boring part of the game. Well, for me anyway. Facing Team Galactic. So we go again to Canalave City and an explosion happens, so I go check the Lake Valor, while Dawn and Barry go check the other lakes. On Lake Valor, we face Saturn, with his Kadabra going down with a Feint Attack from Dark One. Then I change for ESP to put next Toxicroak down with a single Psybeam. Then I change for Fireball to put down Bronzor with 2 Embers, winning the fight. Then I go to the Lake Verity to help Dawn, because apparently she can't handle herself. So I face Mars and her Golbat goes down with a single Psybeam. Next is her Perogly, which starts with the Fake Out. Then I go for Future Sight, and Perogly goes for Feint Attack. Then I go for Psybeam, leaving Perugly on the red, but its Citrus Berry heals it, and then a Slash puts ESP down. I send Fireball, which takes first a feint attack, then takes down Perugly with the bite. Next is Bronzor, which goes down with a single Ember, winning the fight. We get to the other lake, and Barry was already defeated, so we don't need to do anything. And then we go back to Veilstone and take care of the Galactic HQ. And in there we face Cyros, the leader of Team Galactic. He starts with Murkrow and I go with Frosty. A single Icy Wind takes Murkrow down. Next is Golbat, so I send ESP to take it down with a single Psybeam. Last is Sneasel, so I change for Fireball to finish it off with an Ember and a Fire Fang, winning the fight. Then we fight Saturn again, which goes down the same way as before. We set free the Lake Guardians, then we go to the Mount Coronet and climb everything until Spear Pillar. And finally get to the top and Cyrus releases the Chaos on the world with Dialga. Then Barry comes to help face Mars and Jupiter. Both of them start with Bronzor and I go with Fireball and Barry goes for Munchlax. I use Firefang to take down the first Bronzor and Munchlax just goes for Stockpile. Next, Jupiter sends Skuntank, which makes a crit with Night Slash, putting Fireball down. So I send Dark One next to use Feint Attack on Bronzor. Next, Skuntank goes for Poison Jab on Munchlax and Munchlax gets the poison, and Bronzor goes for Confuse Ray on Dark One. Munchlax then goes for Body Slam on Skuntank and Paralyze it. Then I use Feint Attack for Bronzor, while Dark One receives a Poison Jab for Skuntank. Then Dark One hits itself in Confuse, while Munchlax almost takes down Skuntank with Body Slam. But then its Citrus Berry heals Skuntank a little bit, then I take down Skuntank with a return, while Munchlax goes down from the poison. So Barry next sends Infernape. Then Infernape takes down Bronzor with Flame Wheel. And then next is Golbat, both of them, so Infernape goes again with Flame Wheel, which burns one of them. Then both of the Golbats use Air Cutter, leaving Infernape on the Wraith, and Dark One almost falling. Then Infernape takes one of the Golbats down, but the other one manages to take down both Dark One and Infernape. So I send ESP, while Barry sends Buzzle, while Mars sends Perugly. Then a critical hit Slash takes Buzzle down. So ESP takes down Golbat and Barry sends Heracross. So Perugly goes for Aerial Ace, which leaves Heracross on the red. Then ESP uses Psybeam on it, making waste its Citrus Berry, then Heracross takes Perugly down with Close Combat, winning the fight. Thanks for that, Barry. Then we have the fight against Cyrus, again. He starts with Honchkrow and I go with Fireball, because I couldn't change the place of my team right away, so I change for Frosty, which receives an Embargo. Then Honchkrow goes for Drill Peck, and then I use Icy Wing, which makes a lot of damage and lowers Honchkrow's speed. Then Cyrus heals with a Super Potion, so the next two Ice Fangs takes down Honchkrow. So next is Weaviles, so I change for Fireball. Then he takes an Ice Punch, then Fireball goes for Fire Fang, which leaves Weavile on the red. Then it heals a little bit with the Citrus Berry, then Cyrus changes for Gyarados, so then I change for ESP, which receives an Ice Fang. Then I go for Psybeam and Gyarados goes for Giga Impact, which ESP survives on 1 HP. And because of Giga Impact, Gyarados has to recharge, so we can attack twice in a row with Psybeam, taking down Gyarados. Next, he sends back Weavile, so I send back Fireball. It goes for Brick Break, then I go with Fire Fang to take down Weavile. Last is Crobat, so I send ESP. Yes, I'm pushing my luck. Crobat goes for Confuse Ray, which makes ESP hit itself in Confuse, so of course ESP goes down right away. So I send next Frosty, Crobat goes for Cross Poison, which Frosty survives, then I use first Icy Wind to make some damage and to lower Crobat's speed, because I know this Pokemon is fast. But still is not enough, so Crobat's still faster and takes down Frosty with Cross Poison. So I send next Bubbles, and then Crobat goes for Confuse Ray, which makes Bubbles hit itself in Confuse. Then Crobat goes for Cross Poison and I hit Crobat with our Auto Beam, but still not enough and Crobat survives on the red. Of course I decided to go for Quick Attack, but Cyrus has to heal with a full restore, so no damage at all. Then I go with another Aurora Beam, which lowers Crobat's attack. Then another Cross Poison takes Bubbles down. I next send Dark One, which receives an Air Slash, and I go with Assurance to make some damage first. Then of course Crobat goes for Bite, which makes Dark One flinch. Then a Cross Poison, and then I use a Confuse Ray on it to see if we have some luck as well. Then Crobat hits itself in Confuse, while I use Return. Crobat goes for another Hair Slash, but then the next return takes Crobat down, winning the fight. Then the Dialga fight comes next, which I don't actually fight, and I just use the Master Ball on it and I continue my way. Finally we can go to the next gym. So we get to Sunny Shore City, where we are greeted by Flint, one of the Elite Four, telling us that the gym leader from this city needs a good challenger. No worries, I will give a challenge to him. After we get past all of the gym trainers, it's time to face Volkner, the electric type gym leader. He starts with Raichu and I go with Mawar. I go with Magical Leaf, while Raichu uses Thunder Wave to paralyze Mawar. Then Raichu uses Light Screen, while I use another Magical Leaf, which doesn't do that much now. So on the next turn, Mawar gets fully paralyzed, while Raichu goes for Charge Beam. Then I go for Quick Attack, and Raichu starts to go with Brick Break. We continue like this until Volkner heals Raichu with an Hyper Potion. Then I continue with Quick Attack, while Raichu goes for another Light Screen and then continues with Brick Break. Raichu manages to leave Mawar on the red, so I go for 2 Synthesis to heal Mawar at full. Then we manage to put down Raichu with Quick Attack. Next is Octillery, which I decide to stay because I forgot that this thing has a Roto Beam, and leaves Mawar on 1 HP. I go for Giga Drain, but we get fully paralyzed. Just great. So I decide to change for ESP, which takes a Bullet Seam. Then I go for Psybeam and Octillery goes for Octazooka, which lowers ESP accuracy, so to avoid ESP miss the attacks I just go for Swift, which never misses, and Octillery eventually goes down. Next is Ambipom, so I change for Frosty. Ambipom goes for Shockwave and I go with Icy Wind, not only to damage but to lower Ambipom's speed. Volkner heals Ambipom with full restore, but eventually Ambipom goes down. Last is Luxray, so I decide to go with Icy Wind, making some more damage, and Luxray gets healed by Citrus Berry. Then fires a Charge Beam at Frosty, taking it down, so I send Mawar, thinking I could be faster, but no, Luxray is faster and takes down Mawar with a Thunder Fang. So I send ESP and I leave Luxray on the red with Psybeam, but Luxray takes down ESP with a Crunch. So I send Dark One, which finally takes down Luxray with a Feint Attack, winning the last batch. Oh, yes, Volkner, that was a good battle indeed. So now it's time to go to the Pokemon League. But of course, before we challenge the Elite Four, Barry wants a last battle with us. He starts with Staraptor and I go with Frosty. Frosty takes a huge damage from close combat, but then a single Icy Wind is enough to put Staraptor down. Next is Infernape, so I change for Bubbles. Infernape goes for Flamethrower, which only tickles Bubbles, so a single Surf takes Infernape down. Next is Roserade, so I change for Fireball. Roserade puts Fireball to sleep with Grass Whistle, so while Fireball takes a nap, Roserade attack with Giga Drain and Poison Jab. But Fireball finally wakes up and takes down Roserade with a Fire Fang. Next is Floatzel, so I change for Mawar. Mawar takes a Brick Break and then fires a Magical Leaf, which leaves Floatzel on the red. Then on the next turn, Mawar receives an Aqua Jet, but a second Magical Leaf takes Floatzel down. Next is Heracross, so I change for ESP, and a single Psybeam is enough to put Heracross down. Last is Snorlax, so I change for Dark One. First I go with Confuse Ray to see if I have some luck with Confusion, and we actually do, because Snorlax hits itself in Confuse. Next I go for Return, making a little damage, and Snorlax goes for Crunch, which doesn't do a thing to Dark One. I go for another Return, and Snorlax this time goes for Earthquake, but doing nothing, just like last time. Another Return and Snorlax goes down, winning the fight. So time to face the Elite Four now. First is Aaron, the bug type specialist. He starts with Dustox and I go with ESP, and a single Psybeam puts Dustox down. Next is Beautifly, so I change for Fireball. I go for Firefang to take down Beautifly in one shot. Next is Vespiquen. I go with Firefang again, but Vespiquen survives on the red and uses Defense Order to raise its defense. Then Aaron heals Vespiquen with a full restore, while I go for Quick Attack, because it was on the red. And actually I didn't remember about the healing. So I go again for another Firefang and Vespiquen goes for attack order this time. But of course it was nothing special, so another Firefang takes Vespiquen down. Next is Heracross, so I change for ESP. Whoops, wait, no, I changed for Frosty because I actually misclick. So I retrieve Frosty and this time I actually bring out ESP, which receives a close combat. Nothing special, and then a Psybeam takes Heracross down. Last is Drapion, so I change for Fireball. I decide to use Firefang, while Drapion goes for Aerial Ace and Cross Poison. Then its Citrus Berry heals it, then an Ice Fang leaves Fireball on the red, while a Firefang leaves Drapion also on the red. And we get the burn, but still not enough to take it down. Of course Aaron heals again with another full restore. I go with 2 more Firefangs before Drapion leave Fireball on 5 HP. So I change for ESP, which receives an Aerial Ace, then a Swift takes Drapion down, winning the fight. Next is Bertha, the ground type specialist. She starts with Quagsire and I send Mawar, and of course Mawar being a grass type managed to defeat all of her Pokemon, winning the fight. Next is Flint, the fire type specialist, which actually only has 2 fire types. He starts with Rapidash and I go with Bubbles. With 1 Surf, Bubbles takes down Rapidash and Infernape. Next is Lopunny, so I send Frosty to take down Lopunny with a few Icy Winds. Next is Steelix, which also goes down with 2 Icy Winds. Last is Drifloon, and I wanted to start the Hail again, but the Ominous Wind makes a lot of damage to Frosty, but it still survives. So I'm sure Frosty can still survive 1 hit and land an Icy Wind, unless it crits. Of course it does. Oh well, I send Dark One to take down Drifloon with 2 Dark Pulses, winning the fight. Next is Lucian, the Psychic type specialist. He starts with Mr. Mime and I go with Dark One. Mr. Mime starts with Light Screen and reflects, while I use Dark Pulse and return to make some damage on it. Another Dark Pulse leaves Mr. Mime on the red, so of course Lucian has to heal with a full restore. Then 3 Fate attacks are enough to put Mr. Mime down. Next is Medicham, so I change for ESP. I go first with Swift, making a little damage, and Medicham goes for Ice Punch, making more damage to ESP. Then I go for another Swift, and ESP gets a crit and Medicham goes down. Nice one, ESP. Next is Girafarig, so I change for Dark One again. And I use the Dark Pulse, and then a Feint attack to put Girafarig down. Next is Alakazam, which takes down Dark One with an Energy Ball. Oh well, I send ESP and I go for Swift, but Alakazam managed to put down ESP too. Are you serious? Well, this time I send Bubbles and a single bite takes down Alakazam. Last is Bronzong. I attack with some Surfs, but Bronzong manages to put down Bubbles. What the hell? Okay, I change for Fireball and Lucian heals Bronzong, so I go for Firefang, which makes half damage, and we get the burn. So another Firefang takes Bronzong down, winning the fight. Wow, that was brutal. Well, now it's time to face the champion, Cynthia. She starts with Spirit Tomb and I go with Mawar. I go first with Grass Whistle to put Spirit Tomb to sleep, then I attack with Grass Knot until I leave it on the red. Of course I know Cynthia will heal, so I go for Grass Whistle again to put it back to sleep, and then I use again Grass Knot. Then of course Spirit Tomb managed to wake up, but I put it back to sleep. Then I take it out with 2 more Grass Knots. Next is Roserade, so I change for ESP, which takes a big damage from Shadow Ball, but then 2 Psybeams puts Roserade down. Next is Gastrodon, so I change back to Mawar, which takes Gastrodon down with Magical Leaf and Giga Drain. Next is Milotic, so I use Grass Whistle to put it to sleep, then attack with Magical Leaf, and sometimes Giga Drain to heal. Sometimes I had to put it back to sleep, so yeah, it took some time, but Mawar finally crits on the last Giga Drain and takes down my loading. Good boy, Mawar. Next is Lucario's, and I change for Fireball. Of course I go for Fire Fang, but unfortunately Fireball doesn't have the same luck as Mawar, so it leaves Lucario on the red. And that Fire Fang was the last one as well. So I can't use any more Fire type moves. Then Cynthia heals Lucario, and Lucario manages to take down Fireball. I send next ESP, which takes a lot of damage from Lucario, surviving on 12 HP, then 2 Psybeams takes Lucario down. ESP goes for level 64 and... Oh, now you learn Psychic. That would be useful like, I don't know, 1 level ago? Oh well, who cares. Yes, you can learn an ESP. Either way, last is Garchomp, and I send Frosty. Of course I know Garchomp has Brick Break, which is bad for Frosty, but I'm sure Frosty can hold it at least to use Icy Wind, unless if it crits again. Ugh. Well, I send Bubbles next. I use Aurora Beam, which leaves Garchomp on half, then it fires an Earthquake, which Bubbles survives on 2 HP, then another Aurora Beam takes Garchomp down, and we win the fight and become the new champion. Phew! Well, another playthrough completed, this time in Sinnoh, and I got to use 2 new Eeveelutions. Of course I didn't get to use that much Frosty, because of the situation of the Ice Rock being so far away, but still it was nice. Cynthia really is the toughest champion from all games, and it gives me a lot of joy every time I manage to defeat her. I hope you enjoyed this simple playthrough with Eeveelutions. If you did, put a like on that video and subscribe to my channel, so you don't miss the next videos. Eevee will also appreciate. I hope I see you on the next video. Peace!